Hey, good morning, Ben here with Studio on the Lake. Here's the original Santa, and here's one I did a couple days ago or yesterday. This guy turned out to, the original idea was to be a bad Santa, or the other one I redid as the good Santa, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go along. But this guy kind of turned out to be a wizard Santa. He's not evil in and of himself, but he kind of doesn't have a very inviting look for kids. You wouldn't want to go to this guy. So you'll notice that this does not start with a piece of basswood and the blank and me drawing that out. And that's unfortunate. What happened was I have an SD card that I record in the camera, and I lost probably an hour's worth of footage. Yeah, it's the second time this has happened with this particular SD card, 64 meg card. I looked up to see how the filming was going, and I start and stop it in probably 5-minute clips, and it said SD card needs formatted. And I've seen this one time before with this particular SD card. I've got 2 or 3 of them, and this one seemed to have aired out again. And I kind of had a feeling, this is a second card that I put in right after that happened. And when I pulled that card out to put it in the computer and do the editing, I noticed that I'd lost the original footage up front, and that's kind of a shame. But anyway, you'll get to see him progress from this point here, where he goes. So I think I'm going to throw that SD card away. While this is running, I just went ahead and let this one kind of ramble on and let you see all the smaller parts. I ran this one a little, 2 times the speed, and towards the end I noticed it was getting a little long when I'm doing the bag in the hand and doing the other hand that's sitting down. I did it kind of like my gnome or wizard hands that you guys have seen before. And this guy turned out more wizardly as we went along and less like a Santa. I kind of wanted to make him longer faced, sort of gnome character, and he turned out like a wizard. That happens. So on the original Santa, you'll see that there are 2 that I left up there, and one I renamed it Good Santa, and it's a traditional Santa face. Well, I thought I wanted some music. I like to put music underneath the voiceover, give you something, because it's kind of boring. People would write in, and when I didn't do the voiceovers, they said they liked the voiceovers and the talking. The people would say, comment that their wife or something had asked them what the heck they're looking at, because it got all quiet for 20 minutes, and I hadn't put any sound in there. So I get my sound. Typically I use a place called BENSOUND, just like it sounds. And it has nothing to do with having my name in it. It just happens to be one that you can use on YouTube. And you can obviously use YouTube music in there, and that stuff is royalty free, and you're free to use it. A lot of other music like BENSOUND, they just ask that you give them credit down in the links there when you put it in your description. You do that. Well, this one I went and I searched out some royalty free to use Christmas music, and I got pulled down 2 songs and put them in there. And then right as soon as I put this up, and I spaced those things out in about 3 different places, 4 different places in the carving video of the original Santa, and I got a copyright violation, but not really a copyright violation. And this is the second time. When I first started this stuff a year and a half ago, I got a copyright deal on music. And what they do is they take your video and then they monetize it for the person who owns the song. So they send you this nice thing of, hey, you don't need to do anything, but we're going to take all your advertising revenue and give it to whoever owns that song. I've kind of figured it out. They put a metadata tag in the music, and I found it to be just kind of dishonest or crooked. Advertise it as royalty free and free to use, and then once you put it up, if you don't pay any attention to your videos and you're monetized, you think your video's doing just fine, and you don't get any of the advertising revenue for that video. It goes to those folks that put up that kind of deceitful, in my opinion, music. So if it's not royalty free and it's not something that someone can use without you grabbing it and monetizing it, got news for you, it's not royalty free. So I took the video. I didn't want to take it down. By the time I looked at it, there had been 100 views in the comments and that sort of thing. So I went in with the Yahoo editing, and what they do is they cut out the portion of the video that has the sound on the portion of the video that has the music in there. And unfortunately, what that does is it took out my voiceover on that also. So I redid the video and just pulled those clips out. I mean, I maintain them on the computer in DaVinci Resolve, and that's why you have two of the Santa face, and one says Good Santa. So, anywho, this guy here, I kind of let it run. And you see in there that I'm carving pretty deep, and that's been the theme of the last couple ones. So, beginning carvers, and there's a lot of great carvers out there. I've talked about this before. Beginning carvers tend to leave things a little bit blocky. They're afraid to round off those corners. So if you start with a square piece, like these guys all start relatively square, but if you don't continue to turn these things around and take those corners off, then it has a look of not being quite finished. And you get the idea of what's going on. But I noticed that that's one of the things that a beginner will do is not take the corners off. They'll leave it blocky, leave it a little bit square, as opposed to taking it down to the final shape. The second thing that beginners will do is they're afraid to cut deep, and I get that. This is unforgiving art form. It's subtractive, meaning you take stuff away, and once you've taken it away, you don't get to put it back. It's not like a clay sculpture that you're working on. You can't take away part of the nose and then decide you don't like it and ball up another piece of clay and then stick it back on the nose. So depth is important, and I might have gone overboard on this one just because I was trying to carve with that in mind, because these are kind of intended for carvers to grab ideas off of this and where to go. Of course, where the idea came from is I did a Good Santa, and I decided to do kind of a different type of Santa. I'll probably do a few more, a couple of old world Santas. If you look at the European stuff for Santas, the literature, it's not the jolly character that we grew up with here in the United States. I don't know about Canada, but I suspect it's relatively close. We get that jolly, fat-looking, happy-go-lucky Santa with the cherub cheeks. The European Santa is a little bit harsher. He's kind of more like a wood spirit in the long face and the long lanky, and he's not nearly as chubby. You see, I'm running the beard down here, and these bits you'll see me switch back and forth. This is my favorite one. This is the cuts all. It's not an extreme like Jordy Johnson uses. I find that for the stuff that I do, that this character, this medium grit or normal, I guess they call it, works as well as the aggressive one, and it's a little bit easier on the hand pieces. There's been some discussion lately about bits. There's a young carver over He's up in Canada. They're also Calvin, in his website or his YouTube channel is Calvin and Hobby. It's hard to find. I'll put the link down in there. But he's 12 years old. He's doing some awesome carvings, and he got discovered or hooked up with Jordy, and we're trying to throw subscribers his way so he can have lunch money. If you think back to when you're 12, 13, 14 years old, I've said before, this advertising revenue, once you're monetized, is not going to make you rich. You're trying to make a mortgage payment, a car payment, and all the things that go with life. This isn't going to do it unless you're one of those lucky few that seem to just really get rocking and rolling and put out a pretty good video, and it catches on. But if you think about it, the $40, $50 a month that these things can crank out just limping along, and once they're monetized, and it's pretty hard to get monetized. You got to have I think 4,000 views now and 1,000 subscribers. If you do the math, that's quite a bit of people watching. It has to be within a 1-year period. So let's see if we can go over to and check him out and get his subscribers up. Because when I was 14, 15 years old, $50 a month was really something. I mean, that it's better than lunch money. You think about it. I don't remember, milk used to get what, a nickel to buy a gill of milk, and if you saved that for 2 weeks and didn't drink the milk, you could spend $1 or whatever you had saved up. So he was using Kutzall, or I'm sorry, he was using Dremel bits, and the Dremel bits you can find anywhere. Typically in a hardware store, I don't know, Walmart, Target, whatever you guys have got up there that happens to have a section also will have typically Dremel bits, and they're all right for what they're designed for. They're designed for general use, someone who's cutting laminate or just anything you can think of that you might grab a Dremel tool for and grind something down. So I consider them to be a general use bit, and I found they don't work real well for the wood that I'm using now. I use basswood primarily, and they don't work good in basswood, even though basswood is considered a hardwood, but it's soft enough to carve. Now switch over to oak or maple or one of the other hardwoods, and you'll find that those things are really slow going, and they tend to burn. They are a little bit cheaper than what I would consider to be the professional carving bits. So run them down in order. You got Dremel bits out there that you can get anywhere, and I got to be honest, I do run a few of them. I'll buy them if I'm in the store. I'll buy one every once in a while, and then find out that they don't do what I want to do. Fordham makes a series of bits. That's a fairly well-known name. If you're messing around with Dremels, the next up to that would be a Fordham carver. They make several different motors and that sort of thing. And then we come into another company called Sabre. And Sabre bits, I like those also. They're not as aggressive as the Kutzalls. They do have a little better selection than the Kutzalls. And they come in different grits, green, red, and yellow, I believe. And that just has to do with the coarseness of the grit. But I run those, but I typically run those in a 3/32, which is what's in this black handpiece here. The blue handpiece, I run 1/8 inch, and I don't have any equipment set up anymore for the 1/4 inch, although you can get the Kutzalls in a 1/4 inch. I think Jordy uses some of at Carbon Fusion over there, uses some of those, but I do not. You can get these bits that are 1/2 inch long, 1 inch long, and they're just monstrous, and they'll really remove some wood, but you got to be working on a bigger project. So in between the Dremel, Fordham, the Sabre, and the Kutzall bits is what I would call the cheap Chinese knockoff bits. The Chinese bits of eBay is one place to get them. You can get them on various different sites, but they tend to be cheap, and they have sets. and they're advertised as diamond bits. And you see me using a few of those in there. In fact, I think there's one in there right now. It's a little flame diamond, and it seems to work pretty good. Although you see this one's burning a little bit. This is a new bit. It's not an older bit. But they work good. Now, saber, and well, maybe not saber. If you go to a wood carving site or search power carving, you'll find various folks that sell diamond, ruby, and sapphire bits. They're more of a stone, meaning they've got bits of that material in it, embedded in the bit. And those are a finer polishing, cleaning up, although some of the more aggressive ones will cut. But I like to use the ruby and the sapphire, preferably over the diamond. The diamonds tend to burn a little bit as fast as we're running these, which is 30,000 and 40,000 respectively. So in order, if you were to use these bits, and this is my opinion, of course use what you get your hands on. Number one would be going backwards from least favorite to favorite. My least favorite would be the Dremel bits. Then I would go Fordham from there, and then I would go the Chinese knockoffs somewhere in the middle, and they're hit and miss. Then I would go with Saber, and then finally Kutzall. And like a lot of other folks out there, I've got a Kutzall link down there, save you 5%, although I've noticed in the last couple days that they're offering bits for 30% off. They're not that expensive. They're $10, $15 a bit, which is to me not unreasonable to do. So switching back to what's going on here, you'll see me grab a knife every once in a while when I really want to remove stuff, and then sometimes off camera I grab that sanding disc with the DeWalt running on it, a right angle grinder, remove wood quick. Well, this is a piece that I had sitting here. I think it was left over from the fairy skeletons. And here's an interesting technique. So we deal with a stop cut. I want to make a round ball on the end of this. This is going to end up being the tip of his hat, the pom-pom on the tip of his hat. So I saw all the way around that in a circle, and I use it as a stop cut. You can see that I'm getting a ball or a pom-pom on the end of that, and I'll do it real quick with the knife. And then I'm not trying to make it round. And then here's the part where it comes apart. I cut that off, like so. Poof, pom-pom. Now it needs a hole in there. You see the yellow in that bit? That's one of those saber bits. That's kind of a long one, and you can see the yellow is worn off. The yellow is a medium grit. And I'm going to come back. I kind of drilled a hole at the top of that. Then I shaved the top of his hat down because I didn't want it to be nice and smooth. The idea is to get some planes in here. And then I made this so it press fits on there. And poof, he's got a pom-pom on top of his wizard hat. So it's just standard super glue. And Jordy did a whole thing on super glue if you're interested. And I learned through that acetone is what we used to use as a fast setter. So you take some acetone, throw it in a little spray bottle, and poof, you've got what they used to call accelerator, meaning you put it on there, spray with that stuff, and it sets. So towards the end of this, I thought it was getting a little bit long. I didn't know how I was going to talk over this whole thing, but he's Santa, of course, so he needs a bag of goodies and toys. I'm modeling his hand, and you saw me stick that hand up there. I exaggerated so you can see it. I'm going to run this at ludicrous speed, and you're not going to get a whole lot of detail carving on this. But you'll see I'll switch back and forth between that knife if I want to go fast, and then when I want to get down in the nitty-gritty, I'll switch to the video. And I'm taken this hand and I'll place it on his body and see where it's going. I cut a lot of that out. But I've got the rough shape in there. The hand is going to be carved around the bag. And I actually took a piece. You don't see that. I took a little nail and stuck it back in there so that you can't knock this character off. Held it. This would be the point where that accelerator would be handy. You can shoot it. So here we go again. That's a jeweler saw I was playing with around there, and I did the same thing. Kind of cut the stop cuts in. This is going to be the right hand, and I'm going to do it like my gnome hands, with open palm, index finger pointing out like, hey, come here, pointing you out. And of course, a thumb needs to come over the top. And the best way to model these things is to look at your own hand. So there, I'm leaving the thumb down. I've got a point on that. I'm going to drill a hole in the back of it. And you see there, I wanted to remove a big chunk of that quickly. I grabbed the knife, and that's just a Ramelson bench knife. Highly recommend it. And I removed a whole bunch of stuff to get this hand shape where I wanted it. Something, it's kind of interesting, probably run out of time. But remember in the old days when you wanted to learn how to do something, you had to go to the library and look at books and check out books that had the subject matter you were interested in, because that really was the only way to do it. Just like you had to go, this will be a shocker to the younger folks, you had Encyclopedia Britannica in pretty much every house, and you looked that up. You looked up in those to get your book report information, put it together. Nowadays, you just research on the web. And if you want to learn something, you can do it by YouTube. If I'm going to mess around with something on my car, changing a fan belt or pretty much anything, an injector or whatever, I just Google the car that I'm playing around with, and poof, somebody's done a complete video on the pitfalls and the whole 9 yards and the 2 secret bolts that are hidden that you'll wreck it. Because if you remember working on cars, in the old days, you'd go to tear a door apart and you'd never get the door back on right. You didn't want to take a door apart because you couldn't get the clips and all the stuff in there. Well, YouTube is a good way to learn carving now. You can look at a lot of different folks, anything from chainsaw carving all the way down. So here's this guy. I knew I wanted to paint him. Yeah, I really like the rougher part here. And had he not been a Santa, I don't think I would have painted this guy. I think I would have left him alone. He has kind of Google eyes and a pretty rough, weather-beaten look about him. So there he is, finished before the carving. He's got his bag of toys there. And I used Josonia paints, acrylic paints, to paint him. And then you're going to see here in just a second how that guy ended out. So enjoy. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. It's a pretty rough-looking character, huh? And thanks a lot. This has been Ben with Studio on the Lake.